Welcome to Ungimmicked. We are here together for episode number 19 with the whole crew. We have on studio Alexandra Moreau, Connor McDonald, Matthew O'Neill, Sanjeev Vinod. I am your host. My name is Gonçalo Souza. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an important episode today. We are nearing. I'm going to say this from the start. We are nearing the end of season 1 of Ungimmicked. Yes, this is episode 19. Episode 20 will be the last one of this first season. Ungimmicked is not going anywhere. Ungimmicked is here to stay, not only as a podcast, maybe as other things. So you should definitely follow us on social media and on YouTube if you want to stay in the loop on what we're going to do. So with that out of the way, let's get into our discussion. And today's discussion is a very interesting one. We are calling this episode the Part 2. Because in the past 18 episodes, there have been many that we reach the end and we're like, oh, it needs a part 2. We need to continue talking about this. Topics such as scripting, magic vocabulary, just all these things that we never actually end up diving deeper. So we want to do that today. So gentlemen, I don't know who's in charge of presenting this topic for us.
I'll do it, don't worry.
Yeah, give it to Alex.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it needs,
Alexandra.
nearing the part of the season, we didn't want to leave unfinished business. We want to make sure we address most of the things we talked about. So we prepared a little selection of questions that we could go a little deeper on, but still keep few enough that we can actually say meaningful things, not just brush questions left and right. So on this first part, we're going to focus on 2 things that we left hanging. So we're going to discuss 10-15 minutes each. And the second part will be a half an episode about something. I'll let you 2 discover it, so rendezvous in 20 minutes. So the first question we're going to address, it was a great question that we talked in the episode called Making Magic More You. And I don't remember who, but someone raised a great question and asked, can a robot do magic? And we didn't get the time to answer it, so now's our time. So gentlemen, can a robot do magic?
Ooh, okay, that's interesting because you can interpret that question multiple ways, right? Because do magic, do you mean perform magic, or can your methods be a robot?
I think perform magic is what we're going for here.
Yeah, but obviously that's a lot harder question. I know you could imagine a thing where you don't do anything and your whole method is robotic. That could be just a fun project. Anyways, I have no idea.
So I brought this up in the conversation last time, and I'm going to bring it up again just to kind of get things rolling. But I don't know what side of the argument this helps, if it can or can't. All I know is that I look at my phone, and my phone can literally do anything I want it to. It can find any song, it can find any artist, I can find literally any piece of information on the cloud. And I have no idea how it works. I have absolutely no idea how this works, but does that make it magic? Is my phone magic? Because theoretically this is a robot and it's doing something that I have no idea how it's doing.
Like, if you gave your iPhone to an Amish, he would probably think it's magic.
Yeah.
Probably black magic, but that's beside the point.
Like you could be like, name your favorite song. And then I could name your favorite song, and then it would play it.
That's true. They're very, inherently magical objects.
I think I like that point, because Connor, if I remember right, that was, I believe, the point that really started this discussion in the episode where it came from. I would hazard an opinion and say, when your phone does things like you said, even though we don't know how it's doing it, it does not feel magical to us. At least for the sake of this discussion, I think at least part of how we're defining the magic needs to be in the feeling. And when Google finds you something that you don't really know how it does it, it's not really a magical feeling. It's just like an okay, because we kind of take it for granted. But I think that that's more a virtue of the framing rather than a virtue of the tech itself. Because I can imagine a scenario where if a robot is framing this as, I am going to do a magic trick, and then it does something that, again, I don't understand how it's done, just the act of that framing might make it feel more magical to me, because now it's something where the expected is clearly defined as the rules of the world, and what I see is unexpected. But with our phones, everything our phones find to us is still somehow in this garbled boundary of what is possible in our world.
I was thinking part of the reason we take it for granted is because it's for a pragmatic purpose. Like, we are searching for information to use it as something. Like, I'm not Googling some historical fact. I couldn't think of one on the spot, but I'm not Googling it because I want to impress my friends, because to impress my friends I'd have to know something like that. No, I'm just doing it because I need it, versus a magic show where you're there for the experience, but you're not Googling something for the experience unless you're a psycho.
It's a very interesting distinction.
Yeah. So you're saying this it's where the spotlight is, kind of, right? Where the act of that search is a means to a different end, while in a magic performance, at least, that performance itself is the end. So the spotlight's on there.
That's great. That's great. It's a great way of
Give me a
putting
yes,
it.
Matt. Agree with it. Is that what you're saying? That was a question.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
But I was thinking, like, now if you apply the same sort of thought, if you take magic from the 1500s, most of what's in discoveries of witchcraft, I would say a lot of that is trivial. Like, when your uncle, like a Thanksgiving dinner, finds the card, do other people, like complete laymen, see that as magic? They probably don't. And you could say exactly what we said about cell phones with that.
Yes.
Like, except the means to an end versus the means to another end. But essentially, it's because it's become completely standard to us, and we take it for granted,
Yeah, we
and
get used to it.
Greg always does that.
You're touching on the most important point. The word that I wrote down was expectations. We have the expectation that our phone will give us the answer because that's what it's supposed to do. It's even though I don't know how it works, or Connor, you were saying it, even though we don't really know how typing a screen takes me to Wikipedia and has like every single answer to any possible question, like it's even
And then
though
you
I don't
can
know
think of any word in that
but make it a long word.
But you expect a magician to do a magic trick, don't you?
You expect a magician to do
Well,
a magic trick.
distracted
but-
artist. There's
Yeah, the distracted artist is a possibility, but it's more the I think it comes down to, we know that a phone exists and does things, even though we don't know what the process is. We know that the process is real and part of our world and our laws of physics and laws of nature. When a magician does something, it's breaking those laws. It's doing something either supernatural or something that something super simple, levitating a coin or a ring, or that's breaking the laws of physics. Your expectation is a magic trick, but it takes your expectations further, or it goes beyond your expectations by breaking laws that you accept to be real always.
A light bulb when it was first invented.
well, it's
Nothing.
probably a
Yeah.
Was it
magical
magical
experience,
though?
that's true.
Oh, it was probably magical. That's true. That is true. Good point, Matt. Good point.
Let me put a little bit of thing. If you guys watch Magic for Humans, there was an episode where magicians they went into a robotics lab in Japan.
Ah,
They
yes.
did sort of a face-off, and where they made a machine that did like cups and balls and a couple of other tricks.
That was cool.
And it was pretty like primitive, but it was still very impressive what we could do. And that raises the question, like, this is not a future question. This is a now question.
So check this out. It's like, can a computer play chess?
Yes.
I mean, theoretically, you would say yes, but really, it's not playing chess. It's just programmed to react a specific way off of how it's reacted. So we think it's playing chess, but is it, the robot, actually playing chess? Or is it just programmed to do specific movements that we interpret as chess?
It's not
And we
playing
can
the
use
art
same-
of chess.
Just switch chess for the word magic.
So you're putting the focus off of the word are they, and putting it onto the playing, which I really like. Like, is doing chess different from playing chess?
I think the
This is
argument
so
is
deep.
beautiful, but at a certain point, then we have to, are humans playing chess, or are we just programming ourselves to respond to those things? Because you could say that.
Well, that's what we
I'm-
call playing.
Well,
Yeah, that is.
then
very
then,
cool.
then then then
the robot is playing
then a computer
chess.
would be playing, because it's doing the same thing. It's just better than we are, because it actually retains all the information, and for us it takes a ton of time.
there
for
is
us
a
to-
significantly different way computers play from humans.
There is.
Like, there's a
I
couple of
understand
things
that. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Of course. No, you're right.
That's true.
But I think there is an argument to be said, but they don't do the same thing. But an argument to be said, they play chess and they play a lot better than we do. And I guess like if we bring this back to the original discussion, I think eventually it sort of comes down to what you mean by performing magic, right? What is performing and what is magic? And depending on how you define, you can probably sort of go on the yes or the no side.
Okay, I'll say this then, and I think it kind of ties in with the themes that we discussed in this podcast, that to me, if a robot is performing magic, what comes across will be the lowest common denominator of what makes magic. And what I mean by that is, to me, when a robot's performing magic, there's nothing more to engage me besides the fooling, besides the trick itself. Because I do not think a robot can give me anything more. I do not think a robot can give me a person to attach onto, a character, a story. And even a presentation script from a robot would just feel off. You know, there's hypotheses on there's the uncanny valley hypothesis, I believe. Things like that. So I would say that I guess when we all start out performing magic, and scarily enough, even after that, a lot of us are performing like robots.
Yeah.
That common denominator where we're just aiming to fool, and that is our
what a
highest
great
goal.
observation. We're all robots until we break out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we become artists.
We become humans, you know?
So I wanted to embellish it a little bit.
That's
Yours
that was
sounded cooler.
Beautiful thought. And indeed, we might have more in common than we'd like to think.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if it comes down to what we've always said in this podcast, is that in the end, a lot of magic comes down to the intent of the performer, which in the robot we can question a lot. But hey, I think we've touched on a lot of interesting things for this question. Unfortunately, we have so many things to address that we're going to be moving on. But hey, I would be so happy to talk about this for an extra hour.
We could totally be talking about this for so much longer.
Yeah.
There are so many
Part
other
three.
avenues. Part 3.
You see, I'm very happy. I'm very happy that we got to touch on it a little bit more because these points were great.
Indeed. So the second one is something that we've always sort of said we'd do, and we did a little bit, but we never really pushed it. And Gonzalo every time mentions the fact that at some point we will talk about exactly the vocabulary. What do we mean when we say trick versus routine versus piece? What is pattern? What is presentation? So here, of course, let me break it to you. It all comes down to definitions. There, we can switch topics. Just kidding. But here, definitely, what we're here to do is just to talk about our interpretations and of those terms and how we use them, how they're used in magic, and how we believe they might be misused. So it's definitely all interpretative and our own views and our own uses here we want to touch on.
Good disclaimer.
Yeah, definitely. Well, a couple that we use that even a lot of magicians use, even talking to people who aren't magicians, and it gets really confusing, is when they say lay people. Because, I mean, that's a term in some circles, but it's not commonly known. So when they say lay people, it's like, what? What people? What are you calling me? You know? So I just want to make that clarification. That's when we say, we probably should have done that way earlier in season 1.
Yeah, we're guilty of that if we're honest.
We say that also. And
so now we also have to address audience versus participators versus laymen.
Oh, yeah. And also,
Boy.
Spectator is a really interesting word because when that's a... What?
I
don't know how more and more questions in less and less time.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true. I'll make it quick because a spectator, because we use that as a fill-in term for an audience member, generally. But the unique thing about magic we talk about is the fact that it's interactive theater. They're not really a spectator. They're more a participant. Even if they don't come up on stage, they're an emotional participant in the process. So the word spectator and then other words you'll get into like patter and presentation, etc. That term might be a little bit misleading for people who aren't aware or even like willing to really contemplate on it a bit more. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I will at least tell you the framework that I use. It's something that I think I've touched on in bits and pieces throughout other episodes, so it's nice to have it consolidated somewhere. I will not address how it's typically used in the magic community because I don't think that needs to be said by us. But for me, a trick is a word that I flip-flop a lot on, but I'm increasingly okay with it because that is the word that laymen will use. So you might as well accept it and embrace it rather than actively denying it and trying to change words that literally everyone else uses. So trick is what you buy out of the box. Trick is what I do in casual performances to people. Trick is what I show you. I show you a quick trick over Zoom. I try out a trick on my family. A routine, the more I think about it, it's a really clinical word, which makes me kind of not like it. But a routine, the way I would think of it, is tricks either strung together or multiple phases. When multiple things happen one after the other, it's kind of a routine. Every time I say that word, I like it a little less. Piece, on the other hand, is what I would use for this piece has crossed a level of thought. It has crossed a threshold upon which I deem that I've given it.
Right?
Piece, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, that I've given it enough thought. And then there's the method, which is how something's accomplished, effect, and then so on, and all those, I'd say I
Touch
use
on
too.
effect. That's an interesting word. Effect versus, I think Fernando Figueres is like cause and effect.
Yeah.
We
It
talked
says
about
there,
this.
we don't do effects, we do causes.
We do
and effects
causes.
stem from them.
And he says magic is the inconsistency between cause and effect. That's kind of a fun definition of it.
I'm going to, hopefully this doesn't take us too far off topic. I'm going to make an argument on why we should stop using the word layman. Okay?
Okay.
Because I've come to this realization within the past couple weeks that I stopped using that word, and it's kind of still in my brain, so sometimes I might use it. But I think that there is a barrier between the magician and the audience, whoever is watching. And the second that you use the word layman, you're instantly dividing yourself between them even further. You're having a further gap between the two of them. And it is a derogatory term. You guys know Harry Potter? It's like calling someone a muggle. Right? Where it's like, and if I were someone who wasn't a part of magic and I heard some magician call me a layman, like, dude, like what? I'm sorry that I don't know magic. I'm sorry that I'm a layman to you. But like, I feel like it's demeaning. Not that you guys are purposely doing that on purpose. I'm just saying maybe why we shouldn't use it.
So, do you want to propose an alternative? Because sometimes audience member may not be as inclusive as layman is, because
non-magician.
Non-magician is
don't have
perhaps
one.
the simplest
have
one.
I think I have a good one.
People. The word
People. Exactly.
People, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, but magicians are people. So let's come together so that we
Are they?
don't do-
Yeah,
Gonzalo?
but
hey,
Are
no, we're robots.
Because they
guys.
could be a robot, yeah.
But if you're going through with that definition, like you've taken a supposition that's going to make every word you're going to find inherently dividing, which is the problem he's trying to avoid.
So non-magician wouldn't fit. It would still be
Why do you
derogatory.
want to refer to people as non-magicians? Because you have magicians in the audience. Like once again,
See,
There are
I'm
occasions we
trying
use it. I
I'm
can't
trying
think
to
of
find
one
an
right now.
alternative. I'm trying to find an alternative to the term layman. So we identify a problem. Layman is derogatory.
Is it?
That was
just
Connor's
said-
argument.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going
that was
off
my
the
argument.
argument. So it's derogatory. Let's try to find an alternative. People, I think it's not. That doesn't mean anything. That's just humans. So is there a term?
yes, which is what you
There
want
you
to
go.
highlight.
Problem
Well,
solved.
no, but
Yeah.
sometimes when we say layman, obviously when we mean people, we mean people. But also, there's sometimes we want to make a distinction
Yes.
when we're talking.
If you take a lot of Spanish magicians, use friends a lot. New friends, my friends here, my friends here, and my friends here. Which, once again, I think the important thing to avoid the derogatory meaning is to just give people. You're not supposed to like put people on a pedestal. You just want to give them the inherent qualities of a human being.
Yeah, I don't think
Yes.
that lay people takes away from that.
I don't think I'm making my argument across. I understand with you. They are people, but when I refer to as a layman, I don't do that on stage. I'm not going, hey, you're a layman. It's mostly in conversations with other magicians to distinguish a magician from a non-magician.
Well, then why wouldn't you say layman or non-magician? Because the problem doesn't arise if you're talking to a magician, right?
Well,
Exactly.
That is the argument I'm making. So is non-magician the term that we should use over layman?
But layman
when
works in
talking
that
to
scenario.
magicians.
Exactly, and I think that's the only situation where we use the term layman, other than talking in a podcast.
Okay, tying it all together, time. It's okay, guys, don't worry, Sanjeev is here. Okay, so I think the key issue here is that layman feels derogatory, not because of the inherent semantic quality of the word, but rather because of the way that we magicians have used it. And I think we often use the word layman in contexts like, oh, this play is great for laymen. And usually that sentence is in a context that gives it the meaning, this play is great for dumb people. And then on the other hand, we use, this even fools magicians. Like that should be a standard that we're holding ourselves to, that, oh, there's layman fooling, oh, and then there's magician fooling. And I think that divisive nature that Connor's touching on, yes, it does stem from the way that we are using it. And often the word layman is used as an excuse to present a work or material that works for real people. But I would posit as a solution, finding a new word isn't the right approach, because I think we as magicians, at least a portion of our community, will continue to corrupt that new word, and we can't keep jumping around, you know? So instead, I think it's people like us and people who listen to this podcast, magicians who have similar approaches to us, who need to start this process by using the word layman better. And, you know, taking it back from the negative associations that we've brought on it, and instead push forward and bring it back to the neutral, functional prioritization word that it's supposed to be.
Thank you for the linguistics. No, it is appreciated, and you I think you touched on the subject very well. So moving on from that word, you touched on trick, Sanjeev, and you said that you don't mind using trick because it's the word. I hate trick. That's the word that I hate the most. Because my intention with magic is never to trick anybody. So that's the inherent problem that I see with that word. I'm never trying trying to trip you. Instead of trick, let me use trip. Is it like that little misstep? I'm never waiting for that moment where you miss it. It's more that an experience that I hope that I. No,
trick and trip
I don't know.
are pretty similar, you know? Trick is, I guess, inherently malicious, while trip is inherently accidental. But you aren't going
I'm sorry. I'm not saying trip over trick. I'm putting them both side by side. I'm saying trip or make somebody misstep. That's never the goal. The goal is for an experience that's hopefully positive and not negative. And trick has a negative connotation to me. We also touched on patter, and I want to give the Merriam-Webster definition that they have for patter.
Before you move on to patter,
boy.
can I just mention trick really quickly?
Oh, please.
Because here's a word that is almost so obvious, but we never use it. I told this conundrum to a cousin of mine who's not at all a magician, he's an actor. And do you know the word he decided to use instead of trick? He started to use illusion. We don't, in close-up, we don't talk about illusions, but that's the...
Yeah, we do it, but poorly enough that everybody stopped.
Yeah,
What?
I think stage. I've heard illusion.
No.
used in
What I'm
stage
saying is
context and
that's...
stuff.
Oh yeah,
when we
reappropriating the
eliminated
term.
trick, he gravitated towards illusion as the next best term because he realized trick, oh, you're right. Yeah, you're not doing tricks. I mean, I've seen some of your material, so your friend's material, you're doing magic.
When you're doing close-up material, you are very, very rarely doing illusions. Like,
I know, but I'm
formally,
saying
if you take definitions.
as a layman, and we're going to use that, that's the term he gravitated towards. I just thought you'd find that interesting.
But you put him in a scenario where you
interesting.
directly asked him, "Hey, let's not use trick. What do we use?" So
No, I didn't ask him to use a new term. I just said, yeah, I don't like trick. Sometimes I say piece, and he's like, oh, okay, and he just started using illusions, like not prompted at all.
I mean, definitely prompted because you say you don't use trick, so you definitely encourage him to come into that.
Yeah, that's true. That's
But
true.
I
But
see what you're saying.
In regards to patter,
Yeah.
that's another word that I really don't like. Because, again,
patter's bad.
Merriam-Webster, definition for patter, this is entry 2 of 4 because it's verbs and nouns and whatever. But it's either a specialized lingo, a spiel of a street hawker, or of a circus barker. And this is number 3 is the more important one for me.
Circus barker.
Number 3 is the really important one. Empty, chattering talk.
Oh, it's brutal.
Exactly.
It's real.
Magicians! What a
We
standard
memed
set for
ourselves.
So
But,
more people
yeah,
need to start
That's
using
so
patter.
funny.
Actually,
Yeah, we need to use it for real because that's what we say. We're like, yeah, so the cards are sad, so they turn blue.
Yeah. Okay, Matt.
I use that example a lot. Don't I?
I thought he was calling me out for a second. I was like, wait, I think I did that.
Oh man.
Are your cards
got it.
sad?
Okay.
In your
Gentlemen,
hands, they are.
if we have any more notes, any more comments on
I'm
magic
just gonna
words.
go and quickly go through what I think, and I'm gonna make a case for trick. Although trick has sort of the inherent like linguistic tricking, that sort of thing, I would say that we have the same reaction to it that the term magician, and we talked about, is the fact that a lot of people are straying further from magician because they don't like the image. Now people now have it because of how he used it. I think it's pretty much the same thing with trick. Is now so many poor tricks have been done that now tricks sort of shifted and to a point where not many people would like to be identified to that or related to that. So they sort of try to move further from it. So that's
See,
a
I
quick
will
point I'll
say-
make.
Oh yeah, going off of what Alex said, I think, like the point he brought up, trick has kind of been co-opted now by the magician community, where it's like the word Google. You know, the word Google often doesn't make us think of the massive company or whatnot. It makes us think of the action of Googling something. Similarly, trick, I don't think anymore, when used in a magic context, has that inherent negative connotation, and instead it's been co-opted to be just a magic trick. And again, I don't like the origins or the implications of the word, but I think it is futile to try to cry against a word that is used by all other people. I had to mentally say,
pretty
don't say
much, but
layman.
it might be a good idea to start educating slowly. Not like forcing it onto people, but sort of bringing some nuance to it. I'll quickly go
piece is
through a
nice,
couple of
yeah.
words here. Trick. So routine is a very like technical thing. Jugglers do routine, like their routine.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of like
Okay.
performing arts that are very like down to earth with no window dressing have routines, like technical routines. I'm not an expert, but I think that even like in all sports that are performative, it's the routine, like your acrobatic routine. So I think it's very, like, you can essentially make your conclusions from it, but it makes it very, and you put everything together and like it's 1 + 1 = 2, A piece, I think it might be just like a set of everything. That's why I like using piece, because usually it's as passive as possible, and so leaves people to decide for themselves what they're seeing. Because it's such a vast word in the English dictionary. Patter, never say that again. I mean, patters use spelling words. Don't use patter. Presentation is also, I think, something that is quite demeaning, because it would imply that you need to present it. So why do you need to present a trick? Doesn't the trick inherently present itself? Like, if you're doing it, how can you not be presenting it? Why would we need to add a presentation?
Interesting.
Because we have so much shit that is devoid of presentation.
Like,
So I
tricks
just
out of the box, Alex. Do they present themselves?
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
I mean, one could argue that they do.
Unfortunately, they do. I just like, in terms of like word, we've decided to use this word that sort of implies that we need to do all the presenting. Like, this trick is void of anything to be shown, and we add everything to be able to present it to people, which I don't like. What you're saying is a very minimal part of how people are perceiving things.
Interesting.
So I think I've tried to give a quick opinion on all these different words, but I think we've been going on for these questions for quite a while, so it might be a time to
How
catch a break.
is it the part 2 episode and we still like haven't talked about all of these topics? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Like next year's is gonna be like, and now part 6. Let's keep going.
So, gentlemen, I'm going to do this as quickly as I can.
Good.
To all of you listeners, go follow us on social media. Instagram @Ungimmicked, Facebook.com/Ungimmicked, and follow us on YouTube.com/Ungimmicked. We have many projects coming, so you definitely want to stay tuned. If you want to support us more closely, go to Patreon.com/Ungimmicked. And Ungimmicked is spelled Ungimmicked. I don't think I forgot anything. Let's do our breather crimp with Matthew O'Neill.
It's breather crimp time. Okay. This is sort of a freestyle one. We don't have a strict topic to skip to.
Well,
But-
yeah, we do have a topic. Everything we can get a chance to get to.
Exactly. And well, I mean, a lot of it is related to the theme of our podcast, which is learning to be a better performer, learning to hone your craft in a way that makes people care about it. And I'd like to present to you a book written by 2 magicians, time travelers, and all-around spiffing chaps indeed, Morgan and West. Oh, this,
Yeah.
oh, this
Skipping shafts
this
indeed.
book is so good.
This isn't a recommendation. This is an ad copy.
This is an ad copy. You know what? Morgan and West. Hashtag not sponsored, but please sponsor us, guys. We need
Come on the
clout.
podcast. We'd love to have you.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, that'd
yes.
be wonderful. We'll send it to him later. All right, but seriously, I read this book cover to cover in 4.5 hours. I barely took a break. I did not want to put this down.
Wow.
It's written so well. I basically binged the essays and then went through the effects. Oh, it's so good. So thoughtful. And it talks a lot about what we talk about, which is asking the question, why does this happen? Why does it have to be this way? And do people actually care about what we're doing? And answering that honestly. And I can't recommend it enough. It comes with a clip. This is their show, and it comes with a full 1.5-hour clip of their show. It's very enjoyable, very fooling, some really smart things. And hidden inside, I'll wrap this up now, hidden inside are like 3 or 4 effect ideas without methods. Oh, got me inspired.
Interesting.
We'll talk after we quit recording, but I'll tell you about them. But you'd have to read them for yourself. All right, Breathe the Crimp done.
Gentlemen, let's move on to the second half. Our mystery topic of the day. Alex Moreau, what is this topic?
I
that
know
we're gonna be
we've
talking
been
about?
cranked
This is a
up
good
to
one.
11 for the whole episode.
Let me
me
sit
tell
down.
you,
I know.
it's
I'm
not
like,
gonna
I'll just
stop.
run it, dude. Let's go.
Is this the best episode?
It's just because
It's-
by
it's up
virtue of
there.
how many topics we're talking
Yeah.
about. So, what people don't know, people think this is the 19th episode of Ungimmicked. Although it is number 19, it is not the 19th. Because
It is not.
we did record an episode
Oh,
when we
no.
started Ungimmicked.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir.
I have to say, let me just
Oh,
say to
no.
all of our listeners that Alex prepared this. Connor, you were involved in the preparation of this
He was,
episode as
he
well.
was.
I listened to like
He did. He did
4 hours
No,
of
I know,
our
I know.
podcast
Right.
looking
I know, so
for
you
stuff
two-
that we had mentioned.
So I just want to make sure that you two were involved in this. Myself, Matthew, and Sanjeev had no idea this topic was coming. So
No, I had no idea we were recording today.
I am.
That's your fault.
So I am very excited. Alex, talk to us about Ungimmicked 0.
I think
Episode
we called
0.
it 1A.
pilot.
Yeah, 1A.
Yeah, we called it
is
1A.
that
So
Oh,
what
nice.
happened is we just went together and sort of did sort of the vibe check of how it would be to talk about a magic subject, and we had awful mics. That's essentially the reason why we ended up not publishing it, because the mics were just about to come. We figured we'd get back to
True.
it. Now's our time. And the way we started the podcast, the first everything we talked about is so interesting, and it was brought up by Sanjeev, and he made the observation that magic is very often marketed as easy. So let's sort of touch on the ins and outs. So obviously we have more than an hour of content on this. So let's try
Oh my
and
God.
crunch those ideas to just give some pure like concentrated wisdom here. for
Literally just-
people.
And this
10
segment right
minutes,
here,
just fit it in.
this segment is a worker. It's no magnets. You can do it 360 degrees angles, instant reset.
By
'cause
the
you
way,
can
for
watch this
people that
over and
don't know,
over
this
again.
is where the name Ungimmicked came from. We sort of
Yes.
tried
Oh.
to bank on all the like the buzzwords of magic deals, like should we call it 360 degrees or instant reset? But we figured Ungimmicked was a pretty
Instant
interesting
reset is
one.
also kind of a cool name.
Yeah, that's
but
a cool name.
And sort of touches on the fact that we try to take away all the bull to go to deep with the question. And hey, now why do we market magic as easy? Sanjeev, tell us more.
Yeah, wow, I'm gonna be echoing stuff from that episode. It was a fun one, man. Yeah, it was a fun one. The origin of this topic was basically, I think, I still see ad copies like this, and it still really hits me, where things are marketed as, oh, sleight of hand free, minimal, easy, you can perform right out of the box. And regarding consequences of this, one thing important to acknowledge is that these ad copies rarely reach non-magicians. So that's not a community whose reactions we need to discuss in the scope of this conversation. But to magicians itself, I think what it does is perpetuate us on this cycle that we've discussed a lot throughout this season of Ungimmicked, where magicians are lazy. We
lazy.
enjoy not trying. Yes, and when magic is marketed as easy right out of the box, I think it further encourages us to perform it as if it's easy and perform it right out of the box. And I see no direction for that but a downhill for magic as an art form, because the more we portray it as simple and anyone can do it to ourselves, the less unique we are making this art form for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I would make the argument that it's not magicians that are lazy. I would just argue that people are generally lazy, especially this demographic of our demographic, our age group right now, is everything on social media and YouTube is being
whippersnappers.
marketed as like, oh, this is like, you want to make money fast, this is how, and
Yeah.
it tells you something, and you inevitably have to be putting in work because nothing comes free, and then you have to like, and then people skip to the next one hoping that it would work. But I think another reason why it could be marketing as easy is because of business, to make money. It is easy to make money when you market something as easy. And although we don't like to see that for the art of magic, I think you can make the argument that selling a trick is not for the art of magic. You're selling a magic trick to make money. How do you make money? You market it as easy.
It's true that there's
Unfortunately,
this
yeah.
cold, hard side of business. And yeah, I think one thing we touched on that first episode is that it's definitely a respond by demand. Like, there is a lot of demand for easy out-of-the-box magic, and that's sort of the response of the market to that. I would also argue it comes from the inherent misunderstanding of magic, and by magicians, of course by magicians, because people say some stupid shit like, because the method is easy, I can focus on presentation. Oh wow!
Oh, wow. That hit.
Oh, wow.
Hey, boys. Yeah, jeez.
I'm so guilty of saying that though.
Oh no! Oh, you're about to get roasted.
I've changed. I'm a changed man, but I'm totally guilty of saying
So
that.
for those who are
5 days
listening
clean.
to like episode 20, you probably know how we feel about this, but let me put it this way. If you need to be focusing on the presentation because your method is easy, you probably suck at magic. I'm being very direct and obnoxious, and I could say in a lot nicer ways.
No, let me remind you that Alex is someone who does not pass judgment.
Yeah,
That is
like
all.
if you do that, you enter in the category of magicians I don't say anything else about.
Oh my god.
No, of course that can be a little more conciliant, but essentially we really want to like push people to brick effort.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to say, maybe this is a better way to put it. If that's what you're saying, you don't need to be better at magic, but you need a better approach to your magic and to magic in general. And you can refer to basically every single episode we've done
Yeah,
to talk about that.
definitely. When you here, that's a perfect segue. I just had a thought regarding your approach in magic, because we were talking about magic. Sanjay, I think it was Sanjeev O'Connor who said right out of the box performing it, and that's how I used to read books. I used to read books looking for a trick I can do, that I could just do it the way it's described in the book, and it's done like that. And then, well, after hanging out with you guys, after really contemplating a lot, I bought a new book on sleight of hand, Card Devilry, J.K. Hartman. And the third effect I found is amazing. Not because it's necessarily a good trick, but it inspired me, and I said, wait a minute. There's something here. I can take this and make my own thing. Because 2 years ago, I would have said, I wouldn't really perform that. When you practice it, then you can start seeing potential in things. Now you can put your own heart into it. Maybe that's what Alex was trying to say when he says get better at your approach, which is practice putting yourself into what you're doing.
And question everything you say, you do, and you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, furthermore, and now not why we market magic is easy, but I'm going to talk about the way that I think we as Ungimmicked think about magic. Right off of what you said, Matthew, I've been reading I read a book, the book that I recommended the other day, Etienne Pradier's La Magie des Cartes. I read that book cover to cover. I loved it. Super fun. There isn't one trick that I said immediately, let me do this. Let me get onto it. I read it because I understood the value in learning from it. Some of those things are hard. Some of those things are things that I don't want to perform, but there is value in understanding that not everything has to be easy and instantly performable. You can read and study magic for your own knowledge and for your own development in this craft and this art.
Sometimes it's even hard to read.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I will say two things about what's come before me, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. The first is in response to something that Alex said. I think you were on the right track. And to me, the big issue with the easy method so that we can focus on presentation is a trend that we see elsewhere in magic too, where we're setting a very low bar for ourselves. You know, where we say, okay, this is fooling, that's good enough. That's all magic is supposed to be. Okay, this is fooling and entertaining, that's good enough. That's all magic needs to be. Or, because when we say you need an easy method so you can focus on presentation, we are implying that you cannot do both of them well. That's just false.
That's almost
Look
insulting.
at people. It is. It's insulting to ourselves. It's just setting a lower expectation for ourselves. Look at Mario Lopez.
Yeah.
Phenomenal methods. Like, they are difficult. They take focus, and
He does hard
phenomenal
stuff.
performer. Yeah, and also I think when people try to look for easy methods, typically, while we may gain as a performer, we are sacrificing the impact on our audience, and I think that is a mistake that we cannot let ourselves continue to make.
Making compromises for ease, you're saying?
Where we compromise on the audience's experience in order to make it easier for ourselves. Exactly.
Yeah, let me just
Understandable.
make clear that we're not saying that easy methods are bad. Easy methods are good because they're easy. It's just if you're choosing an easy method over having a good presentation, well, we were talking about the word
Well, if you're
presentation.
choosing an
just
easy
before.
method over a better method,
Exactly.
that
The
might
easy
be an
method.
issue.
Exactly.
In
That's
fact, most
those are the
very
good
good
words.
methods are simple.
Mhm.
I didn't say
Yeah.
easy. I said simple.
simple. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Yep.
Exactly.
And savage, too. I'm going to go back to the book. Some stuff you read, it's one sentence, 2 words, and you're like, oh, that's so
Okay,
smart.
yeah, 2 words how you do it, and 3 pages about how you do it.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Precisely.
totally. I think that one thing that people need to realize, or I didn't realize, is that, because that was my mindset, totally, just like looking for the next best thing that was really easy to do. And not that it wasn't until I had friends that do magic, but it wasn't until I started doing these podcasts and talking with you guys, and I really started to see my my view on magic totally and completely change. And I've recommended this so many times. We have recommended this a million times, but it's really important to have a friend group to be able to bounce ideas off of and jam with, and be able to be like, that was bad or that was good. I think having a group that where you feel safe to do that is really important. And if you don't, find one. And if you can't, I don't know, DM us.
Yep. There you go.
Send us a DM. Send us a
Definitely.
DM, and we'll jam with you. You know what I mean? Like let's do it. Send us an email.
I think we've really established like no bullshit policy, where if you don't want to do something, you say no. But if you say, oh, I'll do it, literally that night I will say I'm available from here to here and do it. So that's something
Yeah.
we're doing in the group. Literally, if someone wants to discuss the idea that very night, it's not that week or that month. And
Yeah.
I'm a strong proponent for that. Of when you say you're going to do something, just do it instantly, or make yourself available to do it really quick. Because it's really easy to fall into that, oh yeah, we'll do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first step. Emailing us would be the first step, as in, like, I'm making a change. I'm just not going to do it. Like, I need help. I'm going to reach out. That's a huge step. And I would recognize that. So, hey, shoot us an email. That'd be fun.
Go for it.
Yeah,
a couple of
definitely.
things I want to, because I wanted us to talk 2 minutes about a couple of things we did bring up in that first recording we did. Something we did mention, and I'll put 2 points together, and let's really take 2 minutes to address this some more. Number one is that this easy to market and out of the box maybe helps to take down an entry barrier, which is very high in Magic, which is very hard to get into. And the other one is that maybe the secrecy and sort of the access to exclusive knowledge is very appetizing, and sometimes we might care more about having the knowledge than the knowledge itself. Any reactions off of that?
Oh yes, definitely. It's I really like what you said about the barrier to entry with Magic, because it's the methods almost don't matter with what you're doing. Like, you could have a beginner, somebody who's just getting into it, maybe they're a few months in performing, they're practicing a few things, do the exact same piece as somebody who's doing it for 30 years. And considering that they hopefully use those 30 years wisely, you know? But you can see a difference. And even if it's a simple method, like say a top change, right?
It's a hard
Top change is a hard method, but people learn it relatively soon, possibly a little prematurely, right? So somebody doing a method with no understanding of misdirection and group dynamics versus someone who's a complete master of it. Some people, like, top change is so good, they'll fool me with it. I'm like, whoa. And that's the simplest method. It's the easiest. But you can't market it. You can't market
Interesting.
experience.
Interesting. Okay. I think I like that. I like that. And I'll say this. I think the issue with marketing tricks as easy is yes, although it may lower the barrier of entry, I think it keeps magicians just at that entry level for far too long. And as an alternative solution, because I don't think it's worth positing a problem unless you can posit a solution, is that YouTube. You know, I will eternally stand by YouTube exposure for a couple of reasons. One is obviously it makes magicians try harder, and I there's not enough of that to go around, so I'm very okay with it. And second is that's where I started. I know that's where some of you started. That's where a lot of my peers started, where it is the lowest barrier of entry. And you know, I would highly recommend someone watch maybe 20 free YouTube tutorials instead of randomly buy a $10 trick on Penguin that sounds cool and says easy. You know, because one might actually start building foundations, fundamentals, and you can self-select because you can go through so many. But, you know, going off of an ad copy for a beginner I think is really daunting because it's far easier to almost get trapped by that marketing. Because I think as someone who's trying to enter magic, it is very difficult to discern what magic that is marketed well is good and what's just not worth it for where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because my next point was going to be like, let's say, for example, the invisible deck, an amazing effect. And we sometimes people look down on it because if you're a beginner, you could get your hands on that pretty easily and perform it pretty fast. It's still an amazing effect, though. And if you were to do it today, you would get amazing reactions. And I think that's where an issue is that that effect is so strong. And if you can perform it so early on and you get good reactions, you're like, oh, magic is so easy. It's so simple. All I have to do is this. I can do it mediocre and get incredible reactions. That's what magic is about, right? Getting good reactions? No.
And then you
It
stop
encourages
thinking too
people,
soon.
it encourages the
Yes.
magician, yeah, exactly, to stay at a really beginner level and not dive deeper, or not try harder and look into it. I think that's another huge issue as marketing magic is easy.
What is magic about would have made a good episode.
I think we've sort of answered
that our
that
season?
question.
We've
throughout
talked
our
about it.
season.
That's true. That's true.
That could be the name of the season, that's true. Well, you guys brought some wonderful points, and we touched on so many things that we did deal with in that first episode. Of course, we can't say as much in 20 to 25 minutes as in an hour, but I think the conclusion to this and to so many of our episodes is why? Ask yourself, why do we want to break that barrier entry? Why is that the way we're doing it? Why? And here, why are you buying something? Why are you going off that ad copy? As you get more experience in Magic, your percentage of bad buys is going to go down. When I started Magic, a lot of my buys were shit. I wasted a lot of money on bad Magic. Now I'm very happy with what I buy. I very rarely am disappointed by what I buy because I just grew more knowledgeful. And let's put the emphasis on that, everyone. Let's put the emphasis on becoming more knowledgeful, of becoming
Growth.
better magicians and better people. But why?
Your skill is built upon the foundations of every good answer you have to why.
But it's why methods, why performance, why script, why
everything.
character, why people,
magic.
why everything. And be honest with yourself. If you're not happy with your own answer, think more.
Why should you subscribe to Ungimmicked? Because we have amazing content. I'm sorry, I
Wow.
couldn't help myself. Gentlemen, thank you for another episode.
I'm slightly mad at that.
It was
alienated
so
the whole
awesome, it was
point.
so good, and then it just totally...
I
boy.
could not help myself. I'm gonna make this as quick as I can. Again, go to social media and follow us. Stay tuned for what we have in the future, and go listen to the other 18 that we have before. Stay tuned for 20.
It's
coming
very
next
easy.
week. It is very easy to go and listen
But
to all
why
those
should
episodes.
they?
Reach out.
Why now? They should, because we have amazing content that we've put in so many hours. I mean, amazing, that's for you to decide. But we have put in a lot of work, and we are very proud of this project. So come and enjoy it.
And getting better, becoming a better magician is so hard today. Resources say so much shit. Come to Ungimmicked.
Yeah.
We will tell you first-hand experiences of people that became better magicians over the course
Yes.
of 6 months, 1 year, and 10 years.
Yes. And we became better because we asked why. And I'm saying this as honestly as I can. We have, before we close, an assembly that this week is going to go to Mr. Sanjeev Vinod.
Yes. After some of Gonzalo's segues, I genuinely think, how do you live with yourself, dude? Okay. Dude, respect for doing that every time. It must suck. Yes. So for
Takes a toll on
for
the ego.
potentially my final assembly this season, I wanted to bring it back to basics and recommend a book. Obviously, a lot on this podcast is about becoming better as a magician, but one conclusion we've drawn repeatedly is that it starts with becoming a better human being. And so, I don't know, Gonzalo, you might have to visually bleep this out, but this is the book I am recommending. This is Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Beep. I got you, Gonzalo. I got you.
It's
thank
a
you.
book, just for those who...
Oh, fuck, Alex, how could you do that?
It's sort of my role here.
Nice.
Yeah.
This book is great. I am so grateful that it was presented to me kind of in my transition between high school and college. And I would credit this for a lot of the reason why in high school I was a prick and in college I was slightly less of a prick. And you know, credit where credit's due. Mark Manson's an incredible author. We've hinted at some of his other stuff. The framework of polarization from his book Models is in from one of our earlier episodes is something we repeat a lot. Why it's better to be loved by some, hated by some, rather than be kind of liked by everyone. He's a genius, and his book is really funny. And it's an extremely entertaining read, which makes a lot of the harsh truths it contains way easier to take. And I think this is a great start for anyone, regardless of what walk of life you're on, what age, what stage you're in. And yeah, can't recommend it enough. Highly recommend to all you boys too. Read this when you can. I know you'll take something from it, and at the very least, some really funny swear word related jokes.
This is my wish list. And this is going at the bottom of my wish list.
On the bottom, not the top. It's not worth the top.
Okay.
It's worth the bottom.
I did everything. But I mean, the title already sold me, to be honest.
We've definitely talked about that book before.
Gentlemen.
It's been brought up before.
I'm going to close this episode. This was a longer one, but it had to be a longer
That
one.
was a good one.
We went so fast. We said so much.
We did,
so
and we
fast.
tried. We really tried, but we still couldn't stay on time.
Hey,
We're gonna have to re-listen
Now
to
that
that.
we're here, like honestly, like for people that are still bearing with us, we've implemented a queue system to see who will talk, and it's made our episodes a lot easier to edit for Gonzalo.
Yes.
This one's gonna be hard to edit. Let me.
There was a
We
lot
have
of
a lot
overlap.
to say. Very passionate.
No, but it's
episode.
okay. And I think I know we swore a lot, so there are a lot of and shits that I have to bleep. So it'll be okay.
Nice.
You mean a lot of things and things? Yeah, so like,
Yeah, bleeps and bleeps. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for listening on that side. We were joined by Alex Moreau, Connor McDonald, Matthew O'Neill, Sanjeev Vinod. My name's Gonzalo Souza. Thank you for listening to Ungimmicked.